Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 29, 56, Human Cultivation, Ren Dao. 29th of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. For the next period of time, Li Wei focused solely on practicing the Tai opens the sea technique, seeking to recapture the exhilarating momentum he'd felt during his battle with Yao Zhengsheng, the sensation of cleaving the ocean with a single sword strike. Master Guan had explained that this was heavenly Dao law convergence. Li Wei practiced hundreds of sword strikes each day. Each strike was executed with maximum effort, pushing his physical and spiritual power to their limits before stopping. He repeated the process endlessly, gradually deepening his understanding. After thousands of strikes, he still couldn't achieve heavenly Dao law convergence at will. However, in the following days, he managed to achieve it once or twice each day. Mere practice alone won't suffice, Master Guan had said. You must engage in combat, hone your skills through real-world experience, and face life and death struggles against formidable opponents. Otherwise, it will take you years to master this technique. Master Guan's heart was a complex mix of emotions as he spoke these words. His own master had once said the same thing, but had added, otherwise, it will take you decades to master this technique. After all, who could have believed that Li Wei, after just half a month of practice, could already consciously grasp the essence of the heavenly Dao law convergence realm, even if his success rate was still low. In the mornings and evenings, at the transition between day and night, Li Wei, Kai Yutong, and Qin Ke followed Senior Spirit Tablet to cultivate spiritual power and perceive spirit light. Meanwhile, every other day or so, Li Wei would take Zhao Zhijuo to the inn to seek the help of the senior expert in reshaping the spring. Time flew. 22 days had passed since the attack on Shenlong Street. Zhao Zhijuo, wearing a bamboo hat, emerged from the inn and spotted Li Wei waiting in the shade across the street. He hurried across. How's it going? Did you successfully reshape the 8th spring? Li Wei asked with a smile. Zhao Zhijuo pulled Li Wei along the riverbank to a secluded spot before removing his hat, revealing a ruddy, weathered face radiating vitality and brimming with excitement. He clasped his hands together and bowed deeply. Li Wei said, since you've reshaped the 8th spring and returned to the peak of the surging spring realm, remember to repay me for the spring liquid. It was 93 drops in total, costing 93,000 silver coins. I'll round it down to 90,000. The spring liquid is one thing, but the senior spirit tablet agreed to help me reshape my spring because of Brother Li's connections. I'll never be able to repay such a debt of gratitude. Zhao Zhijuo insisted on bowing before adding, don't round down. I'll make it an even 100,000 silver coins. I'll write you an IOU. 100,000, You said it yourself. I won't be polite. Li Wei said. Zhao Zhijuo, in high spirits, laughed heartily, haha, don't be polite at all. At my current cultivation level, earning 100,000 silver coins shouldn't take more than a few years. After exchanging hearty laughter, Li Wei asked Zhao Zhijuo to wait while he went to bid farewell to his senior. He briefly returned to the inn to place the stone coffin inside the evil camel bell before they hurried toward the city gates. The initial excitement Zhao Zhijuo had felt gradually subsided. He turned serious and said, Brother Li, the month is almost up. What are you thinking? Joining the Dao Academy is actually a very good path. Almost all the top experts of the Zhu Li clan have trained there for a period of time. 2 weeks ago, young clan leader Kang Li visited their residence, assuring them of their safety for the next month. He also invited Li Wei, Kai Yutong, and Zhao Meng to study at the Kandli Tribe Academy or compete for a spot at the Zhu Li Dao Academy. Li Wei had already made up his mind. Don't worry. I'll visit the clan academy myself in the next few days to pay my respects and express my gratitude to First Commander. I'll make my decision then. By the way, I heard that repairing the Qi Si is far more difficult than restoring a spring. It seems to require blood crystals. Zhao Zhijuo had long given up on ever reaching the 5 Seas realm again. He was already content with his 8th spring cultivation, so he spoke with a relaxed demeanor. The 5 Seas of the 5 Seas realm refer to the 5 lobes of the lungs within the human body. To cultivate a Qi Si, one must use spiritual power to repeatedly refine a lung lobe until it reaches a critical point, at which point an inner world ocean is born. Back then, all 5 lobes of my lungs were pierced, and all 5 oceans of my inner world completely dried up and withered. The blood crystals you mentioned can only repair the lung lobes. To revive the inner world oceans, you'd either have to take a 5 Seas pill and hope for luck, or rely on a legendary spiritual spatial space artifact. Li Wei wasn't sure if the evil camel bell counted as a spatial artifact, so he simply listened as Zhao Zhijuo continued. 5 Seas pills are incredibly difficult to obtain now. Even the Kandli tribe itself is severely lacking, with each pill exchanged for a large number of otherworld coffins. Given my situation, my chances are slim, and taking one would likely just be a waste. I'm already content with recovering to the 8th spring. I won't trouble the young clan leader and clan chief any further. I have no other choice, but it's different for you, Brother Li. If you were to marry the 4th miss, your future would undoubtedly be boundless. Old Zhao here, with my 8th spring cultivation, should be more than qualified to serve as your gatekeeper or driver, wouldn't you say? Li Wei chuckled. If I don't marry her, will my future be truly bleak? Zhao Zhijuo had only been joking and dropped the subject. Shall we go find Yao Zhengsheng and capture him, then bring him before the young clan leader or first commander? Clearly, Zhao Zhijuo's confidence had been restored somewhat after recovering to the 8th spring. Li Wei's smile faded. Yao Zhengsheng is just a blade. Taking him down won't topple Yang Yun. Don't forget the Kandli tribe's ties to the Yang clan. Yang Yun is a direct descendant of the Yang clan, a cultivator of 8th spring. What are we in comparison to them? Zhao Zhijuo remained silent for a long moment, then said softly, Yang Yun covets the 4th miss, the spiritual artifact in Brother Li's possession, and nearly killed us. I'll devise a plan. Let's try an assassination. Li Wei was startled. He hadn't expected old Zhao to suddenly become so ruthless. Don't do anything reckless, he urged, the Yang clan is backed by the Sui sect. Forget about those old fogies, just provoking Yang Qingxi would be enough to give us a world of trouble. It was already April, and the weather was gradually growing warmer. People on the streets were wearing lighter clothing. The two men walked out of the city gate, crossed a wooden bridge dozens of meters long, and followed the stone path along the moat toward home. The stone path was 5 meters wide, with the endless suburban domain stretching out on the other side. Under the eaves of the houses, long stone steps were crowded with ragged children in straw sandals. They were all around 5 or 6 years old, their faces yellow and gaunt, as if they had walked a great distance. Their feet were blistered, and their faces were covered in a thick layer of dust. There were nearly 100 of them, seemingly resting there temporarily. Li Wei walked along, observing the children. Across the street, under another eaves, round, curious eyes watched him and Zhao Zhijuo. Why are there so many children? Li Wei felt something was amiss. Zhao Zhijuo, unfazed, replied calmly, look closely. They're almost all twins. Li Wei did notice this. 2 children would often look strikingly alike, with only a few solitary ones. Why was the proportion of twins so high? It was utterly bizarre. Zhao Zhijuo explained, they're grown from Rendao, human cultivation. T.N. Rendao literally translates to benevolent rice, but I chose to render it as human cultivation, because in the story, certain ancient and powerful families raise and cultivate children from a very young age. What does that mean? Li Wei asked, puzzled. Zhao Zhijuo continued, have you heard of human cultivation, Rendao? Li Wei shook his head. Human cultivation, some call it human seed. The ren, human, in human cultivation refers to both seed and kernel. Human cultivation originated deep within the nether realm of the dead, where it served as sustenance for mysterious entities in the realm of the dead. It later spread to the Lingxiao realm. A single stalk of Rendao can produce several or even a dozen fetuses, always in even numbers. Those growing on either side of the stalk resemble twins. I've heard that various factions in the outer provinces have already begun mass human cultivation. First, they select exceptionally talented individuals and train them as death warriors. Second, it allows for a rapid surge in labor. Third, humans are simply a resource and a commodity. Trading cultivated human rarely leads to disputes, and no one will stand up for them. I've heard that some brutal rebel army factions even feed cultivated humans to their strange beast mounts. In Li province, the Zhu Li clan's elders strongly opposed human cultivation, considering it a violation of human ethics. They feared that as the proportion of cultivated humans increased over time, it would lead to uncontrollable social unrest. But as far as I know, some within the clan still secretly cultivate it in the Mangshan mountain range. Li Wei marveled at the thought, his heart heavy with the implications. The existence of cultivated humans was bound to raise profound ethical questions. Looking at the children sitting by the roadside, he couldn't help but feel a surge of pity and compassion. They had no parents. Without parents, who in the world would truly care about them? Let alone their happiness, it seemed no one even cared whether they lived or died. Ah Yin, tie your shoes properly, or your feet will get blisters. Just bear with it a little longer, we'll be there soon. A woman in a white Buddhist robe knelt on the ground, tying the grass rope shoelaces of a cultivated human girl. Her voice was both melodious and gentle, like a summer breeze, unforgettable after a single hearing. Once finished, she stood up. Her figure was tall and slender. The female cultivator's robes were loose and flowing, revealing only her long hands and legs. A string of red prayer beads adorned her right wrist, their color as vibrant as congealed blood. Sensing Li Wei's gaze, the white-robed cultivator turned her head and gave him a gentle, smiling nod. She then softly chanted, Amitabha. Li Wei clearly heard the Buddhist invocation. He froze for a moment, then a storm of shock surged through his mind. This isn't Earth. Does this world also have Amitabha? Amitabha, also known as the Immeasurable Buddha, is the legendary Buddha who presides over the Western paradise. Li Wei had finally encountered a genuine Buddhist practitioner. He was still debating whether to approach her for guidance when she walked over to him first. The white-robed cultivator appeared to be in her 20s, with sallow skin, average features, and slightly prominent cheekbones. After performing a respectful bow, she spoke in a melodious, gentle voice, "Sir, it's clear you have a compassionate heart. Your eyes radiate a tender light of pity for all beings. May this humble nun dare to request a bowl of vegetarian food." Though Li Wei valued silver coins greatly, a bowl of vegetarian food was hardly worth much. He returned her bow and said, "Not just one bowl. Bring all the children. They look famished." Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 30-57 Amitabha. 30th of Volume 2. Translator. Shadow Knight AK. Editor. Shadow Knight AK. Li Wei rented a 3-story restaurant nearby. He originally wanted to order more dishes, but the white-robed Buddhist nun declined, saying that a single bowl of vegetarian noodles each would be sufficient. Nearly 100 children filled all 3 floors, and though they were only eating noodles, they were overjoyed. Though they were cultivated humans, they still experienced joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness. Li Wei and Zhao Zhizhuo were already starving. Since everyone was eating vegetarian food, how could they indulge in meat and fish? So they each ordered a bowl of noodles and sat at a window-side table on the 2nd floor, sharing a meal with the white-robed Buddhist nun. After taking a sip of the steaming hot noodle broth, Li Wei humbly asked, "Jushi, what kind of Buddha is the Amitabha you chant?" The white-robed Jushi Buddhist nun put down her chopsticks, sat upright, and said solemnly, "Amitabha is both the Buddha of immeasurable light and the Buddha of immeasurable life. He represents light, life, and space. He is the ruler of the Buddha Holy Land, located infinitely far beyond our world. His light illuminates the Nether Realm. His lifespan is endless. The Holy Land world he manifests in his palm is the most vast life realm in existence. His spiritual power and divine abilities are boundless. This world's Amitabha bore striking similarities to the Amitabha of Earth's mythological traditions." Afterward, the white-robed Jushi quietly ate her vegetarian noodles. When eating noodles, everyone's eating habits usually aren't very graceful. But she neither chewed slowly and deliberately nor devoured her food like a savage beast. Though her appearance was ordinary, the way she ate exuded a sense of tranquil beauty that was pleasing to the eye. Li Wei watched for a long while, completely forgetting what he had intended to ask. After finishing her noodle soup, she wiped her mouth clean and gave Li Wei, who had been staring at her, a slight smile and a word of thanks. A moment later, the white-robed Jushi gathered all the Ren Dao children outside the restaurant. As she was leaving, she looked up at Li Wei, who was watching her from the 2nd floor, her voice still as gentle as ever. "I originally planned to take on a job to earn money to support the children. But since you treated me to noodles, I won't kill you today. Perhaps another day." Li Wei had been lost in the white-robed Jushi's infectious, gentle smile. Hearing her words, he felt as if he had been instantly plunged from a sunlit mountaintop into a dark, frigid ice cave, the cold nearly freezing him solid. So she had been waiting for him by the city moat all along, or perhaps she had been planning to go to his residence to kill him. Zhao Zhizhuo's complexion was no better. His face was pale as he slapped his forehead. "I should have been suspicious long ago. Besides Coffin Mountain, what other Buddhist cultivators are there in Li Province? She must be an assassin from the 5 Burials Temple." The word, assassin, slipped from his lips in a barely audible whisper. Shu Fodu of Coffin Mountain, one of the 3 great barbarian bandits of the Southern Territory, was a behemoth to whom even the Zhu Li clan had to pay annual tribute. Who in the 7 provinces of the Southern Territory didn't fear the Buddha's Salvation bandits, numbering 100,000? Zhao Zhizhuo stared at the white-robed figure growing distant and murmured, "The 5 Burials Temple is the most terrifying assassin organization in Zhu Li City's nether market. Rumor has it that Coffin Mountain is the power behind them. I didn't detect any spiritual power fluctuations from her at all. Her cultivation must far surpass ours. Thank goodness we were generous enough today, or we'd be in serious trouble." Li Wei's expression shifted repeatedly. He quickly stood up and called out from a distance, "Next time you're begging for alms, come find me again. I'll treat you to noodles another day. As much as you can eat." The white-robed Jushi, already at the door bridge, glanced back at the 2nd floor and simply smiled before leading the group of children into the city. At the city gate, as expected, she was stopped by 4 soldiers of the city defense camp. PFF'd. PFF'd. In the next moment, all 4 soldiers were cleaved in half by a crimson kasaya. Gushing blood seeped through the gaps in the wooden drawbridge, continuously dripping into the moat below. A burly, nearly 2-meter tall monk with a thick, twisted beard put the crimson kasaya back on and respectfully bowed to the white-robed Jushi. "Martial uncle, your nephew was delayed by some matters. I should have been here to meet you at the city gate half an hour ago. It's fine. I didn't wait long, just about the time it takes to finish a bowl of noodles. The white-robed Jushi and the crimson kasaya-clad monk, accompanied by nearly 100 cultivated human children, strode confidently into Zhuli City. Martial uncle, something major has happened in Burial Immortal Town. News began circulating in small circles last night, and this morning it became completely impossible to contain. Many powerful figures have already left the city to investigate, the monk whispered. Boom. Boom. A large group of city defense camp soldiers arrived, but when the officer leading them, mounted on a fire fox strange beast, recognized the monk's face and met his cold, stern gaze, he was the first to lower his head, unable to meet the monk's eyes. In the end, the city defense camp soldiers simply collected the corpses. Li Wei had completely lost his appetite. Someone must have placed an order at the Five Burials Temple. Either Yang Yun or the Chang'an gang. But the month isn't up yet. How dare they? Zhao Zhijuo quickly considered the situation before rising to his feet. I'm going into the city right now. I need to find out what's going on. I'll be back before dark. After parting ways with Zhao Zhijuo, Li Wei returned to the courtyard. Beneath the old yang tree in the front yard, Kai Yutong stood veiled, her attire much lighter and more refreshing. A single point of light flickered between her eyebrows as she used psychic telekinesis power to communicate with a giant spider. Just like training a dog, she used a single finger to command it to stand up and sit down. Her talent for the spiritual path was extraordinary. In 3 days, she grasped the concept of spiritual light. In 10 days, she opened her third eye spirit realm. In 22 days, she learned insect scripture and tamed her first giant spider, officially becoming an insect tamer. Li Wei, on the other hand, had yet to even glimpse his first flicker of spiritual light. According to Senior Spirit Tablet, the reason was that he lacked inner stillness. His mind was preoccupied with too many thoughts, his heart cluttered with countless distractions, preventing the flash of insight from ever arriving. Senior brother, tell everyone to pack their things quickly. We're going into the city before the gates close at nightfall. Li Wei didn't know how many lives the Chang'an gang or Yang Yun had taken, nor whether the assassins would indiscriminately kill innocents. All he could do now was lead everyone to the Kandli clan academy to seek refuge. But he worried about being ambushed on the way. A warrior like Yao Zhengsheng could cause catastrophic consequences with a single kill. Zhao Zhijuo would surely seek help from Li Songolin or Kang Li. If the Kandli tribe could send a group of experts to escort them, their journey would be much safer. Everyone realized the gravity of the situation and immediately began packing their belongings. Time ticked by as luggage was loaded onto carriages. Li Wei sat atop the courtyard wall, channeling his spiritual power to enhance his senses. He focused his energy on his eyes, ears, and nose, reaching peak awareness. Soon, he caught the scent of Shi Chuanyu, the Chang'an gang's banner leader, carried on the wind. Though he couldn't see or hear him, he knew he was nearby. Moments later, he glimpsed Yao Zhengsheng's fleeting figure on the second floor of the Baoyu or Moon Pavilion across the street. Several other unusually light footsteps mixed with the crowd on the street. Fortunately, Zhao Meng's presence in the courtyard still held a deterrent effect. As the sun dipped westward, Zhao Zhijuo finally returned with a troop of white-robed cavalry, young clan leader Kang Li's personal guard, numbering 20 riders. Their cultivation wasn't high, but their symbolic significance made them untouchable to most. Zhao Zhijuo's expression was grim, his brow furrowed with worry. After entering the city, I went straight to the clan academy, but it was deserted. Then I went to the clan manor to see the young clan leader, where I learned that a major incident had shaken the Zhuli city's upper echelons last night. First commander had already left the city. The Five Burials Temple's murder warrant was issued this morning and quickly spread to every city in Li province. The reward is a 5C's pill. This is most likely Yang Yun's doing. Only he could have gotten the news out so fast. Li Wei asked, was there no reward offered for anyone else? Zhao Zhijuo shook his head. In my opinion, Yang Yun cares more about 4th Miss's attitude toward you than the Chang'an gang's losses. With this confirmed information, Li Wei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. The reward is just a 5C's pill. I thought Yang clan had issued a death warrant, given how even the white-robed Jushi was alarmed. Do you think she's truly a formidable figure? Zhao Zhijuo's expression turned serious. Brother Li, you must trust my judgment. I once reached the peak of the 5C's realm myself. For the white-robed Jushi to have deceived even me, she must be extraordinary. Don't be paranoid. In Yang Yun's eyes, you're just at the 7 Springs cultivation level. Offering a 5C's pill as a reward is already an extremely generous offer. The white-robed Jushi's appearance was completely unexpected. It was clear from the start that she wasn't normal, one moment compassionate, the next ready to kill. We offered her a bowl of noodles, and she spared us. There's something seriously wrong with that woman. Zhao Meng asked, so, should we enter the city or not? Zhao Zhizuo replied, let's all take refuge at the clan academy first. Something major has happened in Burial Immortal Town, and the young clan leader is rushing there immediately. With both the first commander and the young clan leader away, it's too dangerous for us to stay in the suburban domain. What major event happened in Burial Immortal Town? Li Weiyi's mind raced, recalling the bizarre events he had witnessed there just a month ago. Zhao Zhizuo shook his head, indicating that the young clan leader hadn't shared any details. Li Weiyi escorted everyone out of the mansion. As they reached the gate, he suddenly grabbed Zhao Zhizuo's hand, his expression solemn. Old Zhao, I'm entrusting all my companions to you. Please take care of them. Zhao Zhizuo frowned. Aren't you coming with us? Li Weiyi glanced toward the Baoyu Moon pavilion in the backyard, forcing a casual smile. I have a feeling they won't let me into the city. If I go to the clan academy, they won't have a chance to strike. Wei Yi, you said yourself that brothers should live and die together, Zhao Meng reminded him. Though Kai Yutong didn't know what had happened, she turned back with Zhao Meng. Li Weiyi steeled himself and said, the 5 C's pill is too tempting to them. If I stay with you on the way into the city, it will benefit no one. I'll bring slaughter to you, and you'll become a burden, making it impossible for me to escape. Senior brother, senior sister, wait for me to return. By then, we'll fear no one. With those words, Li Weiyi vanished in a flash, fleeing along the route he had long planned in his mind. Like a phantom, he raced toward the Sui River. In an instant, numerous figures shot after him like arrows from a drawn bow, converging from the surrounding streets. Some darted through the crowd, while others raced across rooftops. A golden carriage pulled by a silver-horned elk thundered down the street, attempting to intercept him. Li Weiyi had already discussed his plans with Senior Coffin. Once Zhao Zhizuo recovered his 8th spring cultivation, he would send Zhao Meng, Kai Yutong, and the others to study in the Zhuli clan. Only then could he safely venture into the tomb of the Azure King, pursuing a faster path to becoming a hidden one. Today's sudden crisis forced him to advance all his plans. Now, the setting sun bled across the sky. At this moment, night and killing intent were closing in relentlessly. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Zhuli Insect Valley. Chapter 31-58 The City Filled with Murderers. 31st of Volume 2. Translator. Shadow Knight AK. Editor. Shadow Knight AK. Li Weiyi's residence was only a few miles from the Sui River, separated by 3 bustling streets and a low-roofed, blue-tiled fishing village. Once he reached the riverbank, he could leap into the water and escape. With his inexhaustible spiritual power, he could hold his breath underwater for an entire day and night without suffocating. Other martial mystic cultivators couldn't match his stamina. The ghost banner draped over Li Weiyi like a black cloak. He moved like a streak of ink, traversing 3 bustling streets in mere breaths. In the distance, the masts and sails of countless ships docked along the Sui River were visible, and faint laughter and banter of fishermen returning from work could be heard. Suddenly, a sense of unknown danger washed over him, causing every hair on Li Weiyi's body to stand on end. Without a moment's thought, he tensed his legs and instantly unleashed the clear void cicada chasing step technique, altering his trajectory. Bang! A thumb-thick, 4-feathered long arrow plunged from above. Its arrowhead sank deep into the stone pavement. The arrow shaft, still a man's height above the ground, quivered violently. Its speed had far exceeded the speed of sound. Only a moment later, the piercing whistle of the arrow's fletching finally reached Li Weiyi's ears as he continued his escape. Such a powerful arrow could easily have crippled him, even with his corpse garment soft armor and the protection of the ghost banner. 300 meters above the ground, a 3-meter-tall female aberrant humanoid with black feathered wings floated in midair. She held a giant bow of the same length, and 9 arrows remained in the quiver on her back. A flicker of surprise flashed in her deep blue eyes. How could that kid on the ground sense my arrow before he even saw it? Not only is he a martial mystic cultivator, but he's also a spiritual mind master. As Li Weiyi knocked the second arrow, the silver bowstring, as thin as a strand of hair, shimmered as the giant bow was drawn back. This bow was a spiritual artifact. She was determined to obtain the 5 C's pill from the 5 Burials temple. Whoosh! The long, drawn-out whistle of the arrow echoed once more. Li Weiyi narrowly dodged the second arrow, but her right ear was grazed, drawing blood. It was Murong Xiao, ranked 21st among Li Province's 100-strong warriors. Using her advantage in flight and a low-grade spiritual artifact giant bow, she had killed over 10 7th-rank martial mystic cultivators. She had even ambushed a 5 C's realm cultivator, though she failed to kill him, escaping unscathed. In recent days, during breaks from taking Zhao Zhizuo to reform the spring, Li Weiyi had visited the 7 Springs Hall to learn more about Li Province's 100-strong warriors. The need to dodge the 2 arrows had slowed Li Weiyi, allowing a masked expert who had been pursuing her across the rooftops on her right to catch up. This masked expert was also an aberrant humanoid, with elongated limbs and remarkable speed. Whoosh! He kicked off the eaves, causing them to collapse instantly, sending shattered tiles scattering across the ground. In the next instant, he was directly above Li Weiyi, his phoenix-shaped battle axe slicing through the air with a terrifying hiss. It seemed Li Weiyi's head was about to be severed. Li Weiyi's shoulders twitched, his form blurring as he appeared a step away, narrowly avoiding the axe's blow while simultaneously slashing back with his sword. PFF'd. Even though the masked Seven Springs martial mystic cultivator had used the phoenix-shaped battle axe in his other hand to block the blow, he was still sent flying. His body crashed through the wall of a fisherman's house on the right side of the street, blood gushing from his abdomen. He had once been the most agile surging spring cultivator in the world, but he had been defeated by Li Weiyi, whose movement technique was even more mysterious. Is it Xie Jin or Li Weiyi? You'd better clarify before you leave today. Xuanhuan, the banner leader of the Chang'an gang, caught up, his voice sharp and effeminate. Silver light flickered in his hand as he unleashed a dense barrage of flying needles. As someone who had been able to accompany the gang leader and vice-gang leader to meet Yang Qingxi, Xuanhuan was not an ordinary individual. He was an 8 Springs opening martial mystic cultivator who had received a 5 Cs pill from the Yang clan, but his attempt to break through to the next realm failed. Of course, 8 Springs opening prodigies and 100-strong warrior, surging spring cultivators with immense combat power or potential, generally had the opportunity to obtain a second 5 Cs pill. As for pure immortal physiques, it wouldn't be unusual for them to receive a third or even a fourth 5 Cs pill. However, each cultivator could only consume one 5 Cs pill per year. If the breakthrough attempt failed, they had to spend a year cultivating their lungs before trying again. Xuanhuan made a misjudgment that resulted in heavy losses for the Chang'an gang, so he naturally had to come personally to atone for his mistake. Moreover, there was a reward of a 5 Cs pill for killing Li Weiyi. He was utterly confident that after consuming the 5 Cs pill this time, he would break through to the 5 Cs realm. With his 8th spring breakthrough to the 5 Cs realm talent and strength, the Chang'an gang would have to change its name to the Shi gang. Clang! 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 As Li Weiyi retreated rapidly, he swung his longsword, creating a waterfall of sword shadows that deflected every flying needle. In this brief respite, 3 more figures closed in. Among them, 100-strong warrior Yao Zhengsheng was the most imposing. His 4-meter-tall giant ape body carried a newly forged 1,000-catty iron rod on his shoulder, each step shaking the ground. The other 2 Seven Springs martial mystic cultivators wore masks. One wielded a sword, the other a spear. They circled around the rooftops to intercept Li Weiyi, blocking his escape toward the Sui River. Unlike the 100-strong warrior, they were more cautious, fearing retribution from the Kandli tribe in the future and refusing to reveal their true identities. In an instant, Li Weiyi found himself trapped in a deadly net. The sky and every direction on the ground were guarded by top-tier experts. To make matters worse, a steady stream of Spring Surge Realm martial mystic cultivators, drawn by the 5 Cs pill and spiritual artifacts, were rushing toward the scene. Some lurked in the shadows, waiting for Li Weiyi to be injured and weakened before striking to claim the spoils. We can't wait any longer, or we'll never escape today. Kill! Li Weiyi roared, crushing the second blood bag tied to his scripture belt. Then, he charged toward the 2 masked Seven Springs martial mystic cultivators blocking his path, his fighting spirit surging to its peak. The sword-wielding Seven Springs martial mystic cultivator's spiritual power overflowed, swirling around him like mist. He crouched low and swung his sword horizontally, aiming to sever Li Weiyi's legs. The spear-wielding Seven Springs martial mystic cultivator transformed into a fully drawn bow, then channeled the power of his entire skeletal and muscular system into a single thrust. Dozens of spear shadows materialized simultaneously, forming an impenetrable wall of spears. Whoosh! Murong Xiao, flying in midair, anticipated Li Weiyi's movements and shot an arrow. A 3-pronged attacks. Despite never having met before, the 3 warriors coordinated their attack flawlessly in an instant, a testament to their extensive combat experience. Li Weiyi had always been most wary of Murong Xiao in the air. The moment she charged forward, he defied the laws of physics by abruptly changing direction, slashing his sword toward the crouching sword-wielding Seven Springs martial mystic cultivator. With the scripture belt's blessing and the clear void cicada chasing steps profound mystery, Li Weiyi could move with ghost-like agility, advancing and retreating freely, shifting left and right unpredictably. Boom! A man-high arrow, descending from the sky, slammed into the ground 3 feet to Li Weiyi's right. The Seven Springs martial mystic cultivator, still kneeling, stared in shock at the young figure leaping above him, sword raised, about to strike. He had no time to react. PFF'd. A streak of yellow light slashed across his face, from his brow to his jaw. One sword strike, and he was split in 2. Before his halves could separate, Li Weiyi had already fled dozens of feet behind him, sprinting toward the Sui River at top speed. Twilight deepened, and the lingering sunset grew colder. Li Weiyi silently thanked the heavens. Once night fell, even these formidable pursuers would be hampered by the darkness. His chances of escape would skyrocket. Xuanhuan's effeminate voice drifted from behind. Li Wei, do you really think those people in the courtyard will make it into the city alive? Offending the Changgulan gang always comes at a terrible price. Those two women would be perfect for the Baoyu pavilion. I hear one of them has a pure immortal physique. Li Wei's heart plummeted to the depths of cold despair. But he quickly regained his composure, realizing Xuanhuan was deliberately trying to provoke him, using a tactic to distract him and disrupt his focus. After all, according to Zhao Zhijuo, Kang Li hadn't left Zhuli City yet. With his 20 personal guards escorting them, how could the Changgulan gang possibly dare to attack Zhao Meng and Kai Yutong without a guaranteed advantage? And even if those nameless, insignificant assassins dared to strike, Zhao Zhijuo would undoubtedly be able to fend them off. Zhao Zhijuo's combat prowess rivaled even the top 10 warriors on the 100-strong warriors list, perhaps even surpassing them. Xuanhuan continued, do you think I'm just bluffing? With such a commotion, haven't you noticed the city defense camp still hasn't arrived? Is this the kind of power the Changgulan gang possesses? Li Wei turned his head and glared at Xuanhuan, baring his teeth in a tight, white grimace. Yang Qingxi sat in the main hall of a Mengchong warship anchored in the center of the Sui River. Before her on the table lay a pale cyan embroidered tablecloth, adorned with images of 100 birds and cloud patterns. Exquisite silver wine sets, exotic fruits, and a spiritual artifact bone lamp were arranged on the table. Strands of spiritual qi emanated from her slender, snow-white fingertips, activating the bone lamp. The hazy light from the lamp blurred the surroundings, making her figure indistinct and silencing all sounds within its glow. Everything became ethereal. The lamp's light illuminated her pure immortal physique, making her skin appear even more delicate and snow-white. Any man who saw her would likely be irresistibly drawn to touch her, to grasp and knead her flesh, to feel its softness and elasticity. Yang Qingxi gazed at the shore 100 paces away. As night fell, both the residential district on land and the rows of fishing boats on the river were illuminated by bright yellow lanterns. In a narrow alleyway, beams of spiritual power clashed violently, and yellow sword light flashed. The walls of the houses crumbled repeatedly, and blood splattered into the night sky. The battle was undeniably fierce. To have made it all the way to the Sui River is truly impressive, Yang Qingxi said, her veiled face revealing eyes like clear springs, utterly unreadable. Shui Zheng stood guard at the main hall entrance, his body like molten silver, his skin radiating a metallic sheen. In a voice like metal scraping against metal, he said, young mistress, I will end this now. End what? Isn't it more interesting to watch? This game of cats chasing mice is quite amusing, she replied. Earlier, when Yang Yun had orchestrated the assassination attempt on Shenlong Street, Yang Qingxi had sharply rebuked him. She felt her younger brother was taking an ordinary Seven Springs martial mystic cultivator far too seriously and shouldn't have appeared at the scene himself, leaving himself vulnerable. However, the intense reactions of Li Songgulan and Kang Li afterward had made Yang Qingxi sense something amiss. Further investigation revealed numerous anomalies. That morning, she instructed Yang Yun to proceed without restraint. She wanted to see why Li Songgulan, Kang Li, and Li Ling valued Li Wei and the people in that mansion so highly, hoping to uncover their secret. Especially the secret of the pure immortal physique's transformation. Rustle. A gentle breeze swept across the vast river. A handsome figure in a silver robe and white tunic silently descended from the night sky, landing on the deck of the 200-meter-long Mengchong warship's bow. No one knew where he had come from. Indeed, no one even noticed when he had landed. It wasn't until he spoke that anyone realized he was there. Miss Yang, your boldness in stopping the ship here is truly remarkable. Aren't you afraid that some old fogies in the city might discover our conspiracy? The handsome and noble figure, holding a 2-foot-long bone flute, spoke in a voice filled with an intoxicating male magnetism. If Li Wei were present, he would instantly recognize him. It was the same honored guest who had ambushed the Kandli tribe's coffin-bearing procession in Burial Immortal Town alongside Shi Zhoujai. The attire, the bone flute, the voice. The only difference was that this mysterious honored guest was not wearing the Buddha head mask this time. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Zhuli Insect Valley. Chapter 32-59 A Needle to Tanzhong. 32nd of Volume 2. Translator. Shadow Knight AK. Editor. Shadow Knight AK. Hearing the magnetic voice from outside, Yang Qingxi couldn't tell if it was an act or genuine. A blush of youthful spring fever bloomed in her calm eyes as she chuckled. Those old men's all left the city last night. Young Master Long is the heir of an ancient myriad sect. To dare come to Li province alone to scheme such grand affairs. His courage is far beyond what Qingxi can compare to. In front of these ancient clans, even as the leading figure of the Yang clan's younger generation, even with her aloof arrogance, Yang Qingxi could only fawn and flatter. Young Master Long stood on the deck, beneath the eaves of the ship's tower, where a lantern bearing a painting of a court lady hung. The light emanating from the lantern was distorted by an invisible field around him, unable to reach him, making him appear to be perpetually standing in shadow. It was the power of a mysterious and formidable aura. His gaze was fixed on the fierce pursuit unfolding on the shore. On the opposite bank of the Sui River, near the Mangshan mountain range, dense forests and thick undergrowth concealed all light, leaving only the towering silhouettes of the mountains reaching into the clouds. Shi Zhoujai and a plump boy of 15 or 16 emerged from the dense woods, gazing at the massive warship in the center of the river, its flag emblazoned with the character, Sui. Yang Qingxi is truly mad, Shi Zhoujai couldn't help but curse. Stopping her boat here is a complete disregard for the prefectural governor's office and the Zhu Li clan. The Yang clan and the Sui sect have truly come to see themselves as the masters of Li province over these years, even more arrogant than our Earthwolf King's army. The chubby young man chuckled. Ninth brother, Yang Qingxi is a pure immortal physique, and they say she's breathtakingly beautiful. If she were to let you spend a night with her, I guarantee you'd never curse her again. Wouldn't it be even more exciting to curse her while sleeping with her? Shi Zhoujai grinned. Fighting while you're at it. Ha ha. You're still so young, don't let Lucy and the others corrupt you. Shi Zhoujai laughed, his eyes narrowing. In the distance, a small black sailed boat emerged from the city and was approaching the warship in the middle of the river. Rowing the boat was a burly, bearded monk in a red cassock. They've arrived. Let's go too. A gray cloud of spiritual chi formed beneath Shi Zhoujai's feet. He stepped onto the river's surface, each stride covering several dozen feet. The chubby young man followed closely behind. Shi Zhoujai and the chubby young man leapt onto the massive warship. They glanced at the noble figure standing on the deck at the bow before heading straight into the main hall. Yang Qingxi's smile vanished, replaced by a cold snort. Shi Zhoujai, your Earthwolf King's army can't even handle a simple task. Not only did you fail to seize the coffin and kill the target, but you also exposed your identities. Your incompetence ruined our plan to incite conflict between the Buddha's Salvation Bandits and the Zhu Li clan. How dare you show your face in Li province? Yang Qingxi was, of course, a participant in the plan. Her and Yang Yun's appearance in Yaoguan had been to await news and handle the aftermath. Otherwise, how could they have so conveniently encountered Li Ling? The Snow Wolf King's blunder was indeed serious. Fortunately, Shi Zhoujai's return with news of the immortal star had partially redeemed him. Naturally, Shi Zhoujai wouldn't bring up this embarrassing failure in front of Yang Qingxi. He simply chuckled dismissively. That whole plan was flawed from the start. Have you seen how timid the Zhu Li clan has become? Even if we had slaughtered all the coffin bearers of the Kandli tribe a month ago in Burial Immortal Town, they wouldn't have dared declare war on Shu Fodu. Unless we wiped out the entire Kandli tribe, perhaps then we might have provoked their fighting spirit. Is there any point in saying this now? You can't pull the same trick again. The Earthwolf King's army needs to give us an explanation, Yang Qingxi said. Shi Zhoujai sat beside her, facing the shimmering river and the fierce fighting on the distant shore. Of course there's an explanation. Let me introduce a new friend who wants to join the game. Yang Qingxi sensed something and turned her gaze to the opposite cabin wall. Through the crack in the window, she saw several figures who had boarded the ship at some point, now advancing along the corridor toward the main door. Her eyes turned icy. How could you bring people here without permission? The burly monk in a red cassock had already reached the door. His deep voice resonated. Your attempts to stir up conflict are nothing more than cheap tricks. Do you really think the world is full of fools? If you want to seize the world, you'll have to fight with real swords and spears. Coffin Mountain wants a share of Li province. Martial uncle, please come inside. No, I'll just stay out here and enjoy the breeze. Li Wei fought his way to the Sui River, his clothes soaked in blood, his own and, more profusely, his enemies'. His most serious injury was a long arrow shot by Morong Xiao that grazed his shoulder blade, possibly dislocating the bone. The pain was excruciating. If he had not been wearing corpse garment soft armor beneath his clothes, the arrow would have pierced through him instead of merely grazing him. He had just leapt into the air, intending to dive into the Sui River. Swish. A metal whip nearly 10 yards long, like a slithering serpent, shot out from a pitch-black, unlit fishing boat and wrapped around his left leg. He was yanked downward, his body plummeting uncontrollably toward the boat. Two figures wielding fishing spears emerged from the boat. They were no ordinary fishermen. These were gang leaders who had been lurking at the Sui River docks, both Seven Springs martial mystic cultivators, waiting for an opportunity to scavenge. Li Wei strained to control his descent, slashing his sword to sever the metal whip wrapped around his leg. Simultaneously, he somersaulted in midair to dodge the two incoming fishing spears. Whoosh! In this life or death moment, he unleashed a sword strike from above, as if a true god were cleaving a mountain in two. The Tai opens the sea technique had reached the heavenly Dao Law convergence realm, severing the metal fishing spears in both men's hands and even lopping off one man's arm. The sheer power of the sword strike left the two men on the boat utterly terrified, frozen in place. Li Wei landed in the shallow water beneath the boat, completely exhausted. Just as he managed to stand up, a fierce wind roared behind him. Yao Zhengsheng charged forward, wielding 1,000 catty iron rod, his body moving like a silver-backed giant ape leaping through the air. Boom! The rod slammed into the fishing boat's bow, shattering it into splinters that flew through the air as waves churned around the wreckage. Li Wei had barely managed to dodge the blow. Lu Shen, another 100-strong warrior ranked even higher than Yao Zhengsheng, leapt from his silver-horned elk carriage, covering a distance of several dozen feet. His tiger-like aberrant claws, each as large as a palm fan, slammed down toward Li Wei's head. He was a tiger-like aberrant humanoid. There were only so many types of ancient immortal giant beasts, and aberrant humanoid types tended to cluster in the same regions. For example, Li Province had a high proportion of tiger-like and ape-like aberrant humanoids. Lu Shen's demon-subduing tiger claws had reached the heavenly Dao Law convergence realm. Even at his peak, Li Wei wouldn't have been able to dodge it. Reluctantly, he had no choice but to meet the attack head-on. Bang! The two palms collided with a resounding impact. Li Wei vomited blood and was sent flying backward, crashing through the hull of the wooden ship behind him. His body was nearly embedded in the wood. Swish! Yang Yun, seated in the silver-horned elk carriage, seized the opportunity. The 3-inch blade in his hand shot out, piercing Li Wei's neck and completely piercing the 7 or 8 meter long wooden ship. Its sharpness was truly astonishing. Yang Yun had aimed for Li Wei's throat, but the blow had been dodged. Blood gushed from the right side of Li Wei's neck, but he had no time to attend to it. His gaze was fixed on the 3-meter-tall tiger-like aberrant Lu Shen, who was charging at him. The creature's massive form seemed to fill his entire field of vision. Whoosh! Li Wei ripped off the ghost banner draped over his shoulders and spun it, instantly summoning a swirling cloud of black nether mist. Lu Shen's vision was obscured, and the frigid chill of the nether mist pierced his bones, filling him with a sense of extreme danger. But now, leaping through the air, he had no choice but to press forward, forcing his claw down toward the ghost banner. Beneath the banner, the yellow dragon sword flashed out like lightning. No matter how strong his tiger claw defense, how could it possibly withstand a spiritual artifact? The claw was pierced. Lu Shen grunted in pain, gritting his teeth as he stumbled backward in disarray. Ignoring his myriad injuries, Li Wei leapt onto the wooden ship and, sword in hand, charged toward the deep waters of the Sui River beyond the fleet. Xuanhuan was already waiting ahead, his back to the Sui River. His long beard fluttered in the breeze, giving him an air of leisurely composure as he smiled. Do you think jumping into the river will save you? If a skilled spiritual mind master is present, they can pinpoint your approximate location even if you're at the bottom of the river. Li Wei stopped 3 meters across from Xuanhuan, standing on the roof of a fishing boat's cabin. His gaze swept the area, quickly spotting Master Qi, the insect tamer, hiding within another fishing boat. In addition, several Seven Springs martial mystic cultivators, armed and concealed in different cabins, lay in ambush. Li Wei's earlier display of ferocious combat prowess, where he had swiftly slain several Seven Springs martial mystic cultivators, had terrified them. They dared not make any rash moves, waiting for a more opportune moment to strike. Behind him, Yao Zhengsheng and Lu Shen approached from the left and right. Murong Xiao descended from the sky, retracting her black wings and landing atop a mast. Only one arrow remained. The 5 C's pill is mine, Yao Zhengsheng declared, striding forward. He unleashed his mountain-splitting staff technique, a manifestation of heavenly Dao Law convergence. The 1,000 catty iron staff transformed into a divine pillar, leaving Li Wei no room to evade. Li Wei could only meet the attack head-on. Bang! The sword and staff collided, unleashing a tidal wave of force. Li Wei's right hand couldn't grip the yellow dragon sword. The longsword was knocked loose by the force, flying out of his grasp. His body was sent flying several dozen feet by the spiritual power contained within the 1,000 catty iron rod, and he coughed up another mouthful of blood. With a loud boom, Li Wei crashed heavily onto the deck of a fishing boat, shattering its canopy. Lying on his back, he felt as if every bone in his body had broken. Good. Since you won't show yourself, I'll have to rely on myself. Li Wei had been waiting for the so-called guardian wife to appear, but since she hadn't, he hesitated no longer. No matter how dangerous it was, he had no other choice now. As several hundred strong warriors charged toward him, Li Wei's eyes sharpened with laser-like intensity. He swiftly retrieved the spring-breaking needle he had prepared long ago, held it between his fingers, and plunged it into his chest at the Tanjong point. Immediately, the 5 springs within him erupted simultaneously, channeling spiritual power into his 60 veins, all converging at his chest. This was Master Guan's brutal secret technique, combined spring wall breaking. Li Wei would never have dared to use this technique unless absolutely necessary. The Tanjiang point was a vital life gate, and even attempting to break through the sixth spring normally was extremely dangerous. Using both the spring-breaking needle and combined spring wall breaking was tantamount to suicide. Swish. 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 Yao Zhengsheng, Lu Shen, and Shi Chuanyu, 3 of the 100-strong warriors, charged forward the fastest, leading the pack as they lunged toward the fishing boat, each vying for Li Wei's head. Boom. In the next instant, a silver radiance briefly illuminated the night sky. The 300-strong warriors who had charged forward were sent flying backward by 3 palm strikes from Li Wei, who lay on the boat. They tumbled like straw men, crashing in 3 different directions. One landed on the boat, another plunged into the water, and the third snapped the mast. Yang Yun, who had just picked up the yellow dragon sword, stared in astonishment. He saw that Li Wei, who had been beaten into submission, had risen to his feet. He stood on the splintered, sinking fishing boat, his silver silk gloves radiating brilliant silver light. The spring-breaking needles that had pierced his Tanjiang had completely melted, and a vast, surging torrent of spiritual power erupted from his chest like a volcanic eruption from the sixth spring. What are you standing around for? Come on, let's see whose blood will stain the Sui River first today. Li Wei glared at Yang Yun and the other pursuers, his posture growing increasingly erect, all fatigue and pain replaced by a surging battle spirit within him. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 33, 60 Dividing Li Prefecture, Lizhou. 33rd of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. It was someone from Coffin Mountain. A flicker of surprise crossed Yang Qingxi's captivating eyes before her gaze locked onto the burly, red-robed monk standing outside the main gate. The monk was nearly 2 meters tall, with a muscular, dark complexion and a round, plate-like face and eyes flashed like lightning, devoid of any trace of compassion. Yang Qingxi had clearly earned the approval of her elders, as she was entrusted with representing the Yang clan in negotiations with various factions. How could she not recognize the monk before her? The abbot of the 5 Burials Temple, Great Zen Master Yuzhen, a figure of great renown in the Jiazi register. His status certainly qualified him to represent Coffin Mountain. What baffled Yang Qingxi was that just a month ago, they had been plotting against Coffin Mountain, framing the Buddha's Salvation bandits. Yet tonight, instead of coming to demand justice, the monk was proposing cooperation. Shi Zhoujai said, the Heavenly King believes that with Coffin Mountain's support, the 4 of us could seize Li Province even through brute force. The 4 factions were: first, the Sui sect, which Yang Qingxi represented. Second, the Dragon sect, a sect with tens of thousands of disciples. Then the Earthwolf King's army and the Buddha's Salvation bandits, 2 of the 3 great barbarian bandits of the southern territory. Yang Qingxi instantly understood everything. Clearly, after the frame-up was exposed, the Coffin Mountain leadership had gone to the Earthwolf King's army to demand an explanation. Ultimately, the 2 barbarian bandits had buried the hatchet and decided to join forces to divide Li Province. From the perspective of the Sui sect and the Yang clan, they naturally didn't want Coffin Mountain to get involved. The Sui sect's primary goal in seizing Li Province was to establish a territory of their own. Currently, the Sui sect's power was scattered along the Sui River, spread out on both banks. Although the Sui River traversed the Lingxiao realm from north to south, flowing through 7 provinces and with tributaries reaching into over a dozen more, they knew their own situation best. The river wasn't theirs, they were constantly exploited by the ancient myriad aristocratic families and myriad ancient sects of each province and had to kowtow to the behemoth-like ancient sect Dragon sect, always walking on thin ice. The Sui River was a vine. What the Sui sect needed was a piece of land for this vine to take root, or they would forever remain rootless duckweed. Only by seizing Li Province and becoming its masters could the Sui sect truly establish their own territory. Only by first occupying a single province could the Sui sect hope to eventually grow into an ancient myriad sect powerhouse and even march north to contend for control of the world. The Earthwolf King's army and Dragon sect were both far from Li Province. All they wanted were resources and provisions for their campaigns to conquer the world. But Coffin Mountain was right at their doorstep. How could they possibly join this without demanding territory? How could they ignore the Blood Sea Otherworld Coffin, a resource-rich mine bestowed upon them by heaven itself? Yang Qingxi's gaze swept over Shi Zhoujai, Great Zen Master Yuzhen, and the others. Young Master Long, what does Dragon sect say? The young, noble-looking man standing at the bow of the ship replied, we have no other choice but to launch a full-scale attack and crush Julie. With another faction joining us, our losses will naturally be smaller. After all, Dragon sect and the Earthwolf King's army are already engaged in multiple fronts against the Lingxiao Palace's forces, leaving us with limited resources to spare for Li Province. My suggestion is to strike quickly. We must seize the thousands of years' worth of cultivation resources, grain, weapons, strange beasts, pills, and other treasures stored by the various Zhuli factions and send them to the front lines. If we don't take them, will we leave them for the Lingxiao Palace? With even dragon sect supporting Coffin Mountain's involvement, Yang Qingxi knew there was no room for negotiation. She was still pondering how to secure the most favorable terms when a cold, aged laugh echoed from the Coffin Mountain group outside. You all treat the 9 Li tribes as mere warehouses to plunder. Money vaults to raid. You underestimate the Zhuli clan's thousands of years of accumulated wealth. All eyes turned toward the speaker, including young Master Long and Shi Zhoujai. This man didn't seem to belong to Coffin Mountain. Coffin Mountain had brought an outsider with them. A frail voice emerged from an old man completely shrouded in a wide black robe. He stood behind great Zen Master Yuzhen, the abbot of the 5 Burials Temple, side by side with the white-robed Jushi. His head was covered by a hood, and his entire body was enveloped in black mist, obscuring his features from view. The hooded old man continued, Yang Shenjing did indeed display awe-inspiring power during the Meng Mountain battle 14 years ago, defeating 6 clan chiefs of the Zhuli clan in succession. But would he have stood a chance if all 6 had joined forces? Moreover, the true strength of the Zhuli clan has never been what you see on the surface. Have you ever heard of the Zhuli hidden sect? Having followed the Zhuli clan for many years, the Sui sect naturally possessed a deep understanding of them. Yang Qingxi replied, the Zhuli hidden sect has always been a legend, never truly appearing in the world. Even during the fierce fighting 14 years ago, they remained hidden. I don't believe this legend is true. Even if it were, it's likely just an empty title, greatly exaggerated. Otherwise, how could they have stood by and watched the Zhuli clan decline? How could they have allowed the core interests of the Zhuli clan to be carved away? The hooded old man in black mist chuckled dryly, if the Sui sect truly believes this, you will pay a terrible price for your arrogance. Look. What you thought was a game of cats chasing mice on the shore, is a microcosm of the world's situation. In an instant, it can reverse, giving rise to new, eerie twists. Yang Yun could hardly believe his eyes. 3 of the 100-strong warriors, including Shi Chuanyu, who had opened his 8th spring, had been instantly knocked flying by a severely injured man. From the beginning, Yang Yun had been mocking, never taking this unknown 7 springs martial mystic cultivator seriously. But now, as he met the man's gaze again, the sense of control he had felt vanished, replaced by the chilling feeling of being hunted by a beast in the wilderness. Li Weiyi's 6th spring had opened, but only 2 silver veins had emerged from the spring. It would take time to fully activate them. Shi Chuanyu, who had crashed onto a fishing boat to Li Weiyi's right, was the first to stand up, his chest throbbing with pain. During the clash, he had clearly felt the man's overwhelming palm force. Even without the silver silk glove's spiritual artifact, he doubted he could have gained any advantage in strength. Yao Zhengsheng, who had fallen into the water, climbed out. The water was only 2 meters deep, barely reaching his waist. In the Spring Surge realm, he had never lost a contest of strength. Lu Shen, after being sent flying and crashing through the mast, rose again with blood staining his lips. Coupled with the fact that one of his tiger claws had been pierced by the yellow dragon's sword, his combat strength was severely diminished. Yang Yun steadied his mind, toying with the yellow dragon's sword in his hand. He laughed, he broke through. But it can't be the 5 Seas realm. At most, he's opened the 8th spring and is relying entirely on his spiritual artifact to show off. For someone like us, who in the 5 Seas realm have we ever feared? Kill him, and whoever snatches his spiritual artifact gets to keep it. Of course, you can also exchange it for 5 Seas pills at the Yang clan. Li Weiyi's explosive power just now had indeed been terrifying, but everyone had also seen his injuries. No matter how strong someone is, there will always be a moment when they fall. There will always be a moment when they run out of strength. Earlier, Li Weiyi had used the spring-breaking needle to pierce the middle Dantian point with lightning speed, concealed by the night. The surging spring martial mystic cultivators present hadn't even seen it clearly, so they had no idea he had broken through the 6th spring. Boom. Li Weiyi stomped down on the fishing boat, his body soaring into the air in the wake of the impact. The boat instantly shattered into pieces. As if walking on solid ground, he stepped on the void and charged straight toward Yang Yun. Yang Yun showed no fear. He channeled the 8th spring spiritual power within him into the yellow dragon sword, but then his brow furrowed deeply. The sword remained unresponsive, unable to unleash a blade of light. A palm wind swept across his face as Li Weiyi closed in. Yang Yun momentarily stowed the yellow dragon sword in his left hand and clenched his right fist. Spiritual power surged around Yang Yun's fist, exploding like a brilliant star that pierced through the palm wind and collided with Li Weiyi's silver palm. Boom. In that instant, Yang Yun finally understood why the previous 300-strong warriors had been sent flying. Li Weiyi's palm force was simply too powerful, its power capable of splitting mountains and moving mountains. And this was just a casual palm strike, delivered without any preparation as Li Wei leapt forward. Cracks appeared on the deck beneath Yang Yun's feet as he stumbled backward, each step accompanied by a creaking sound. Finally, he slammed into the thick cabin wall, stopping his retreat. The fist that had directly absorbed Li Wei's palm strike felt as if his fingers were about to shatter. The third vein at his Tanjiang spring, fueled by the exhilarating impact of the palm strike, instantly unfurled within his body. In the distance, at the top of the 5-jong tall mast, a sharp twang echoed. Murong Xiao fired her final arrow. The arrow, hurtling through the night, vanished from sight the moment it left her bow. In the next instant, a scene unfolded that left Murong Xiao's face contorted in shock. Li Wei, without dodging or evading, spread his legs like a drawn bow, his arms rippling with waves of spiritual power that carried a bright silver glow. He unleashed a powerful punch directly at the oncoming arrow. He had grown weary of dodging one hidden arrow after another. He no longer wanted to evade, he wanted to shatter them all with a single blow. Boom. The two forces collided. The thumb-thick, 2-meter-long arrow was shattered by the punch. The wooden arrow shaft shattered instantly under the force. The fourth vein within Li Wei's body was born. Swish. 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 Led by Shi Chuanyu, Yao Zhengsheng, and Lu Shen, over a dozen figures charged in from all directions. Each was radiating spiritual power, with wisps of smoke and mist swirling around them, none were weak. Li Wei knew that even at his peak, he was only at the 6th spring opening. He couldn't possibly fight them all alone. Unless it was a fair match at the same cultivation level. Once this group of powerful enemies, each at least one cultivation level above him, surrounded him and unleashed just a single move each, they could tear him to shreds. Whoosh. While searching for a weak point in their encirclement, Li Wei channeled his spiritual power into the ghost banner. Immediately, a torrent of icy cold air and nether mist erupted from the banner, enveloping a dozen or so fishing boats. The cold air unleashed by the ghost banner was even more bone-chilling than when he had activated it at the 5th spring opening, quickly frosting the surfaces of the boats. While the ghost banner's power wouldn't inflict much physical harm on these powerful spring surge realm martial mystic cultivators, it stirred a deep-seated fear of the unknown within them. This spiritual artifact is definitely not simple. We need to be careful, they all thought, glancing down at the ice crystals on the ground. The nether mist grew so thick that all the lights around them vanished. With their vision obscured, they could only rely on sound to locate their enemies, making them even more wary. Li Wei, spotting the injured Lu Shen, shifted his steps and flashed before him. The heaven-turning hand seal, long prepared, shot out. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.